The birthplace of the Bohemian Revolution from Cowork 591 Studios. This is the Steve Brown Arts Center Podcast Network, and we're on a mission from God.
All right.
With producer Blake Tempus, I'm Jim Gillespie with co-host Dale Rueber, and this is the Jesup News for January 15th, 2024. Dale, do you know what movie that line comes from? We're on a mission from God.
Sure. Blues Brothers.
There you go.
Yep.
Well done. That's very good.
I love that. That's a good movie. I love the music in that.
Yeah.
Usually musical movies I don't care for much, but that one I really did. Every song was really great.
I'm going to talk about that movie.
Are you really?
A little bit.
All
Yes,
right.
I am.
Okay.
Tonight we talk about our winners and losers as always. We talk about tonight's Republican caucus. Also, the Democrats are caucusing, but that's
Not much drama there. So.
No, that's a lower card.
Yeah.
We talk about...
That's a boxing reference, isn't it?
Yes, it is. Very good.
I'm sharp today.
We talk about a murder plot. We look at how we can hurt people by what we say.
Yeah.
And we don't realize it. We look at the best soundtrack ever done in the movies. Talk about the Blues Brothers a little bit. We ask you to support the arts wherever you are. We thank our supporters, Donnie Jacobson and many others. Dale has something for you. We look at coming events in the Steve Brown Arts Center. We give you the top stories, and we discuss service and art. If you'd like to donate to the Steve Brown Arts Center or have an idea for an event, go to the SteveBrownArtsCenter.org and follow the link or call 319-290-0241 and leave a message. As always, the Steve Brown Arts Center is a 501c3 nonprofit organization that has a vision for artists, young and old alike, to have the opportunity to better themselves while helping to build the skills of those around them. It will be offering community programming starting in Jesup, Iowa, before expanding to neighboring communities. Programming will include a community speaker series that will showcase existing creatives who reside within the community, as well as a pop-up series that will spotlight and partner with local businesses to provide opportunities for community engagement. We're excited tonight to talk about some upcoming events, including the Steve Brown Arts Center's first event in Fairbank coming up at the end of the month. Dale, let's start with the caucuses, or the caucus tonight. It sure looks like Trump is going to run away with it.
Yeah, but I know I've been having this feeling all along that when it gets right down to it, that I think Nikki Haley is going to do really, really well. I just have this feeling for her, so I don't know. It'd be interesting to see the numbers because it's not like in New Hampshire she's within 10 points or less, and South Carolina's her state, coming up. So if she can do halfway decent in Iowa, she might have a nice leg up. And people more and more, I think, are talking about all the drama that comes with Trump and how their chances of winning really go down with him because of all the other things that are going on in his life. And so it'll be interesting to see.
Dale, you talk about that, and you go back to the first time he was elected. He said some nasty things. That night they had him taped on that bus, talking about grabbing people and things like that. It didn't hurt him. The first debate between him and Hillary Clinton, I never saw anything like that. It didn't hurt him.
Yeah.
I mean,
he lost he's never won the popular vote. It's where he gets the votes that are making the difference. And I think there's going to be a lot of people voting this time that because I think they will see the menace this man has put our country into. And so all we're doing is guessing here, but he lost by 8 million votes in 2020. So I just don't see, he might poll really big, but he's polling just with Republicans. And there's a lot more Democrats and independents than there are Republicans. And so I'm hoping that wise people will get in that voting booth and do what's best for the country.
It is the caucus in Iowa. So let's talk about Iowa tonight a little bit. Dale, if you were to predict what percentage of the vote is Trump going to get in Iowa tonight?
Well, with Christie dropping out like he did, I'll say he gets 45%.
Okay.
That's, I think, kind of consistent with what he's been polling. But
It is a good number. So 50, say that again, 50.
I'll say 45% for Trump, and then 55% then to be divided. It's just really Haley and DeSantis. And if Haley can get the lion's share of that vote, well, then I think she'll have a real good chance going into New Hampshire and South Carolina after that. But I think just with Iowa's past political history, he's probably going to get 45% of the Republican vote.
The Republican candidates spent a lot of time out in western Iowa, in the rural area.
Yeah.
You know, they don't spend time in Waterloo or Cedar Rapids. Very rare. I mean, they do come to Cedar Rapids, but you know, they don't spend time in Davenport or
Davenport, Iowa City, Des Moines. The rest of the state is more Republican, it seems, for the most part. It probably oversimplifies it, but yeah, out west, where you have the Christians, the uber conservatives, that's where their votes are at.
Well, they talked about when Gary Hart ran. Gary Hart said you could win Iowa with 6 counties.
Yeah.
And you know,
I'm sure that's still true. You look at Polk County and Dallas County, right in the middle there, and then Johnson County around Iowa City, and Scott County around Davenport, and then I don't know how Sioux City over west. How do they go? Sioux City, Council Bluffs, that area. But I know
Lynn County.
Lynn County, yes, probably, yeah.
And Blackhawk County.
Yeah, but you know, the northwest corner is very conservative, and all that, all those small populated counties. You know, a lot of bare land, very few cities.
When I drive for my job, I drive a lot, and I drive the countryside. The Trump signs speckle the countryside.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
so.
Well, I have to tell you though, in 2020, I was fishing in Minnesota in September, and so this is northern Minnesota, and driving back on Interstate 35, to the Hampton turnoff in Iowa. You saw tons and tons and tons of Trump signs and nothing for Biden. And I thought, you know, the guy he's really in trouble, but he ended up winning the election. So I think it's nice, I guess, to have all those yard signs out, but they don't always transfer into votes, I don't think. And so, because I was really worried, because all I saw was Trump signs, but he ended up losing, of course. Well, they won Iowa, though, I guess so.
Yeah. So I will say, I'll go higher. I'll say Trump is gonna score 60%.
Okay, I'm gonna write this down.
That's
now.
fine.
Okay.
That's fine. Trump's gonna score 60% in Iowa.
Okay.
Back in 20, in 20, I worked on the Yang campaign. Worked hard, spent a lot of time at it, and we ended up with 1%.
Yeah.
I mean, it just wrecked Yang.
Yeah.
I can remember a week before the primaries, Yang broke down crying. I think it was in Dubuque. I wondered what that was about. I thought, he's just tired.
Mm-hmm.
But he was tireless.
Yeah.
The man was tireless. And a week later, we got 1%. I realized what he was crying about. He knew what was going to happen.
No, it's a tough business.
Yeah.
And you got to have a real thin skin, or real thick skin, because even the name calling within your own party gets pretty vicious.
Yeah.
And was it Tricky Nikki, they call her now, and but nobody makes fun of Trump.
No, they don't.
Yeah. And
so who's number 2 then? Who
I think Haley's going to be number 2.
you say?
Yeah.
Nikki Haley with what percent of the vote?
Depends if I use your number or my number, but I bet she gets 30% at least.
Wow.
I think she'll get 30%.
So I've got Nikki Haley getting about 15%
Okay.
in Iowa.
15%?
15%.
Okay.
You know, maybe just a little bit more, 15.3,
Yeah.
something like that. But then I'll go first on number 3. real close behind Nikki is DeSantis. He's going to go at about 14.8. He's going to be right there. I mean, like 15.2, 14.8.
So DeSantis, you're saying 14.8?
14.8. Nikki's 15.2. There's 30, so that's 60s, 90.
Well, there's other little things. There's spoiled ballots, and there's a couple other candidates that might get one or two. So, okay. Oh, man. So what's that leave me? Well, I'll say he gets 20%. I know it doesn't add up, but each of these is an individual assignment for me. So I'll say DeSantis gets 20. I think Nikki Haley will beat him.
Okay, and then fourth, I've got Ramaswamy going with probably about I'm going to say 5.4%. And that's going to knock him out. He won't go.
Yeah.
He won't go to New Hampshire. That's
So
going to decide.
What's his first name? It's a little easier to spell.
Oh, is it Anveri?
I don't know. What's his last name? Duswami?
Ramas, Ramas Wamy. Wamy, Ramaswamy.
Okay. You're going to give him what,
5.4%.
5.4%.
And then the rest are going to divide the rest of the votes.
And I'm going to say he's going to get less than 5%.
All right.
Okay.
There we go.
All right.
So then that's tonight. If you're a Republican, go to the caucus. Be involved in that. I'm ashamed to tell you this, Dale. The 20 election was the first time I ever was involved in the primaries for the Democratic.
Okay, the caucuses, you mean?
Or the caucuses, yeah. For the first time, and I coached basketball for 40 years, and I always had practice or a game.
Mm-hmm. I've always gone to the caucuses. I went. Now, what year would that have been? When they first had the caucuses, and there was a race in the Republican side and nothing on the Democratic side. So I went to the Republican caucus and listened. And I cannot remember who was running then, but I've gone to all the Democrat caucuses ever since, and I found that they were much more in line with the way I thought about things. And it's always been interesting. And I sat. You should divide up, but all the Clinton people over here and all the divide up, and I can remember sitting at a table where there were just three of us. We had a candidate there were only 3 votes for him, and I can remember when Obama ran, and Hillary was also running at that time, and Obama just was got overwhelming support there, and holy cow, I said, this guy's going to take it. He just kind of came out of nowhere as far as I was concerned, and it was really very interesting to see the people show up in the lunchroom there, and they were all a huge crowd over in the one corner, and they were all Obama people. I said, oh man. So
I don't know what politician is the next Obama in our country. He was young and upcoming. The Marjorie Taylor tries to be that one. She's young.
Yeah.
But, then there's 3 or 4 young Democratic women that try to be that. But then, they're
not likable.
Yeah.
He was likable.
He was.
Yes. He was just, you talk about his funny little ears and this and that. I mean, he was, and singing, like Bill Clinton won because he played his saxophone on the Tonight Show or something. Obama sang a couple songs for people at different times, and so he just sometimes some people have it. You talk to him, and you man, I really like that guy, and so.
And that's why
that worked.
Who is it? Who is the next Democrat or Republican?
Yeah, I don't know.
Anyhow, let's move on. This is the Steve Brown Arts Center Podcast Network, and Dale, let's talk about winners and losers while we're at it right now.
All right, Governor Reynolds, in her speech to the legislature, is proposing raising teacher pay from $33,500 to start to $50,000, and so I thought, well, that's a real winning kind of thing, not only just for teachers, but for the state as well, because if you pay people, you get better people in there. And so she wants to raise the beginning teacher cost or pay to $50,000, which would cost the state $47 million out of their huge surplus that they have. And then she wants the minimum pay for 12-year veterans to be $62,000.
Right.
And so that would cost $26 million to bring them up to that pay. And I think there's a lot of Jesup teachers that make more than $62,000 already because they have, a fairly veteran staff.
Right.
And so, do you remember your first contract, just teaching? How much was it worth?
Well, I was 6/10, and so it was around. And plus, I was coaching 3 sports, so it was 6/10 and 3 sports was around $14,000.
What year was that?
That would have been 84.
Okay, so I saw my first contract in 73. It was $7,500. That was the highest base in the state for beginning teachers. So
I can remember going to Hummy's house, Paul Hummiston, he longtime English teacher in Jesup, and he had his first contract up in a
wall,
frame on the wall. Do you remember that?
No, I don't remember seeing that.
Yeah, and his first contract was $4,751.
Yeah.
And I can remember Hummy telling me I made that much painting that year.
Yeah, just in the summertime.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Because I made $7,500 teaching, and then in the month from 5th of June or so until the 3rd of July, I coached. I ran the Little League program in Rhinebeck. I got $1,000 for that.
Right.
For just 4 weeks or so. So if I extrapolate that out, that's $12,000 running the Little League program with a year-round job instead of teaching. So
Right.
No, money was tough to come by teaching in those days, but you could live on that.
Yep.
And I was single, and so it was no problem, I guess. But
So Governor Reynolds is your winner. Well, that's got to be a
not
first.
Governor Reynolds. It's just the teacher pay.
There you go.
Governor
All right.
Reynolds will never be my winner at anything. I'm just you look at it, okay, what's she really after here?
Well, my winner is the Allerton Brewery in Independence, Iowa.
Oh, sure. You've probably been drinking there all week, and that's why you are the way you are. Okay.
I am not, although I don't mind a beer now and then. I'm not a big
Not an everyday
craft
beer drinker, yeah.
Yeah, it's just too much hops and that stuff in. I'm not saying Allerton's beer, but I'm not a darker beer drinker, and that's what most of those breweries drink or make.
Yeah, I had a friend. He went to one of these microbreweries. They have all these different kinds of beer that they make, and they asked what he liked. He said, well, give me something as close as you got to a Bud Light.
Yeah.
That's what he wanted. That's what he liked. And so it didn't do him any good to have 500 different kinds of beer there. So,
But Allerton Brewery is supporting the Steve Brown Arts Center this coming Friday. Is we are showing the photography of Dave Harms at Allerton Brewery on the 19th from 6 o'clock until 8 o'clock. And hopefully a number of you stop in, although it's basketball game night for a number of you, so I understand. But
do you have an address for that for people?
Well, that's right by the bridge in downtown Independence.
Okay, close enough. So
Yeah.
if they can't find the bridge, we don't want them there anyway. So.
All right, so that's my winner.
Okay.
The loser is the defense department. For many reasons right now. Lloyd Austin ended up going to the hospital, and I'm not attacking Lloyd Austin. He had a operation for, I believe it was pancreatic cancer. And I'm sure he didn't want people to know, and there's a fine argument. Does a government employee like that?
Oh, you're talking about Secretary of Defense?
The Secretary of Defense.
Prostate cancer.
Prostate. Thank you. Does a government employee like that have to tell his employers?
Yeah.
He did it during Christmas break. The president didn't know he went in. A lot of people didn't know he went in.
Yeah.
and then he ended up getting infection from the surgery. It was pretty touch and go for a while.
Yeah.
Oh, there's the privacy laws that are out there. Does that govern? Does the Secretary of Defense have the right to privacy?
Mm-hmm. And I'm trying to think. There's a black guy on the Today Show, and I can't remember his name right now, but they were talking about this morning, and he was saying, because the Secretary of Defense is a black man, that in the black community, that's a touchy subject because of the ED problems that come sometimes and incontinence and this sort of thing. It's not the kind of thing that many black people want to talk about. Mm-hmm. And so he brought that into the mix as far in the conversation as far as whether or not the man should have been more. But I think if you're the Secretary of Defense, I think you probably should have told the president that I'm going to be gone for a while and I'm having this surgery. And because that kind of surgery, if something goes wrong, they need to have somebody in place to. And so I think he probably should have told the president. I don't know. I don't think he needed to have a news conference or anything before or after, because it's nobody's business except maybe it's the president's business.
Yeah.
And so I would go that far.
But that's why that's what the Defense Department is my loser for for the week. So who's your loser?
Well, every now and then some animal rights people would use fake identification on applications, lie in their applications. They get in these hog confinement places or other animal places where they raise a lot of livestock, and they would film treatment of the animals or mistreatment of the animals, and then of course they would put it out on the internet and this sort of thing. And so they've done this in Iowa. And to me, if someone came into my operation and said, these are terrible things that you're doing, hopefully try to fix those things and not do those kind of things anymore. But what the Republicans did is they passed laws saying you can't lie on your application to get into a farm, and you can't run a camera while you're on somebody's farm. That's against the law. Well, the laws that they went through the court system, and now a panel of judges has upheld these. They're called ag-gag laws, saying that no, you cannot lie on your application to trespass, and you cannot film abuses that are going on. So to me, what that says is instead of fixing the problem, we're going to make sure that the problem can't be reported. And I don't go along with that. So the ag-gag laws, and those are passed by the Republicans and defended by the Republicans, and so those are my losers. I think what they're doing in this day and age with, we don't have to treat animals like that with some of these abuses that are coming up. And so anyway, they were my losers.
Here's a number for you, Dale. In the last year, in the Amish community out here, and I don't know the man's name. I wish I should have done research on it. A man went to 20 different families and built a beef calf confinement building for 200 head of cattle on 20 different Amish farms.
Okay.
You think of that, that's 20. That's 4,000. That's 4,000 head of cattle.
Okay.
That are being confined. It is. We used to talk about this. We used to do an assignment in class when we talked about the philosophes from the French Revolution. What is your property rights? What are your rights? Your property. You can do what you want with that property, including put 200 calves in a confinement building.
So were they making veal? Is that what they're doing, or just raising them to be?
I think they're just raising them to move them on. Is what they're doing.
And they're confined, basically their whole life. Then.
Well, at least up to that point, until they move them on. But that's a lot of building out in the Amish community. 20 buildings on 20 different farms.
Yeah.
This is the Steve Brown Arts Center Podcast Network, and I want to tell you tonight about a murder plot.
Okay.
There was a lady named Abby, and Abby and her husband didn't get along. And Abby found out that her husband was going to try and kill her. Her husband had fallen in love with a younger woman, that she was going to do something to her husband before her husband killed her.
Mm-hmm.
So one night, the police found her car in a quarry with her coat in it and her purse in it.
This is underwater, like in a quarry?
Well,
Okay.
it took place in England.
Okay.
So it was in a shale quarry, so it could have been in water, but
Okay.
they found her car wrecked. This took place about 1930.
Okay.
So the police found the car wrecked, and they looked all around the quarry, couldn't find her. And so they looked at how the car had gotten in the quarry, and they realized it had been pushed into the quarry. And they went to the husband, thinking the husband had done it. Well, the husband was with his girlfriend at a engagement party.
Okay.
And they thought, well, maybe the girlfriend and the husband did it together.
Mm-hmm.
Well, in the meantime, Abby was spotted on the West Coast, and she told the police why she did it. Well, Abby felt no guilt about it, but Abby should have been a lot smarter. Because, Dale, do you know who Abby was? Abby was Agatha Christie.
Oh.
The woman that had killed multiple people in multiple books,
Mm-hmm.
tried to have herself killed.
Oh, this was after she'd written the books okay.
Written a number of books.
Yeah.
Yeah. She.
So is that a true story?
That's a true story.
I did not realize that.
Yeah. Yep. So that's the story of Agatha Christie trying to kill her, or trying to frame her husband for
So
murder.
were there, like after this, you know what happened after? Or?
Well, murder was never, there was nothing.
Yeah.
She was well-to-do.
Mm-hmm.
He was well-to-do.
Yeah.
I'm sure he went off with his girlfriend, and she went on and
Okay.
wrote
So there's
more.
no police charges
No.
for what she had tried to do, or littering her, so.
Yeah.
Well, that's very interesting.
Yeah,
I had
Agatha
never
Christie.
heard that. So.
What's your favorite Agatha Christie book?
Oh man, she did Murder on the Orient Express. That's the one I've seen as a movie.
Yeah.
And 10 Little Indians.
10 Little Indians.
And I think
is
I've
mine.
seen those both as plays rather than read the book.
Yep.
I don't know that I've ever read anything that she wrote, but
Well-
I have seen plays made from her stories.
When I was in high school, I read a lot of Agatha Christie.
Okay.
So I enjoyed that.
Okay.
But anyhow, that's the story of the murder plot.
Okay. Well.
This is the Steve Brown Art Center Podcast Network. Dale, what do you have for us tonight?
Oh, I was going to, for those of you who don't get a chance to read the paper, there was a neat article today that kind of goes with things we've talked about. And it's about the global heat record that was shattered in 2023. And these different organizations that keep track of this sort of thing are releasing their end-of-the-year reports. And last year was 1.48 degrees Celsius pre-industrial times. So that would be like before 1850, before they started the Industrial Revolution, burning all the coal in these factories and everything, and burning oil. So it was the highest since before 1850. And it's January 24 right now is on track to be so warm that for the first time in a 12-month period will exceed the 1.5 degree threshold. And that's the threshold. Scientists have repeatedly said the Earth would need to average 1.5 degrees of warming over 2 or 3 decades to be a technical branch of the threshold. And what that means is keeps 1.5 degrees higher over several years, that's going to be catastrophic for the Earth, and so for the people that live on it. So the guy said this goal is not going to affect us, but our children and grandchildren will very much be affected. And he says the record heat this past year made life miserable and sometimes deadly in Europe, North America, China, and many other places last year. Scientists say a warming climate is also to blame for more extreme weather events, like the lengthy drought that devastated the Horn of Africa, the torrential downpours that wiped out dams and killed thousands in Libya, and the Canada wildfires that fouled the air from North America to Europe, and it was very evident down here. The World Weather Attribution Team only looks at events that affect at least 1 million people or kill more than 100 people. But the lady in charge said her team was overwhelmed with more than 160 of these in 2023 and could only conduct 14 studies, many of them on killer heat waves. Basically, every heat wave that is occurring today has been made more likely and is hotter because of human-induced climate change. Antarctic sea ice hit record low levels in 2023 and broke 8 monthly records for low sea ice. All of this is important, but it was record-breaking. The heat was record-breaking for 7 months. We had the warmest June, July, August, September, October, November, and December. It wasn't just a season or a month that was exceptional. It was exceptional for over half the year, where the temperature is raising. Several factors made 2023 the warmest year on record, but by far the biggest factor was the ever-increasing quantity of greenhouse gases in the atmosphere that trap heat. These gases come from burning coal, oil, and natural gas. Now, I've heard people say this, like other factors, it's El Nino, which is a temporary warming of the Central Pacific that alters weather worldwide, and other natural oscillations in the Arctic, Southern, and Indian Oceans. Increased solar activity, more activity on the sun, and the 2022 eruption of an undersea volcano that sent water vapor into the atmosphere. But this person, Meinshausen, a University of Melbourne climate scientist, said about 1.3 degrees Celsius of the warming comes from greenhouse gases and only 1/10 degrees Celsius from El Nino and all the rest of these smaller causes. So it's still the greenhouse gases from burning coal, oil, and natural gas. Actual observations, temperature, only date back less than 2 centuries. Evidence from tree rings and ice cores suggests that this is the warmest the Earth has been in more than 100,000 years. So it basically means that the cities, roads, monuments, farms, all human activities have never had to cope with a climate this warm. There are simply no cities, no books, agriculture, or domesticated animals on the planet the last time the temperature was this high. For the first time, Copernicus recorded a day where the world averaged at least 2 degrees Celsius more than pre-industrial times. So every day was 2 degrees Celsius higher than before 1850, this last year. It happened twice and narrowly missed a third day around Christmas. For the first time, every day of the year was at least 1 degree Celsius warmer than pre-industrial times. And for nearly half the year, 173 days, the world was 1.5 degrees warmer than in the mid-1800s. But the man concludes saying it's going to get hotter. Following the current trajectory, in a few years' time, the record-breaking year of 2023 will probably be remembered as a cold year. And so this is science, and a lot of people debunk science. That seems to be the popular trend among politicians who are trying to appease people. But I think we talk about Nikki Haley, and one of the things she talked about is more drilling, more fracking, this sort of thing. And that bothers me because I think we cannot keep doing the same things we're doing if we want a planet that's going to be comfortable to live in or even livable for our grandchildren. So the scientists are starting to come in with their reports, different organizations to follow this sort of thing, and the preliminary ones say it's all going to show that 2023 was one of the hottest years on record. It shattered all the records, and that it's going to only get worse if we don't change our ways. So that's my little spiel for today.
I think it's too late to change, Dale.
Well, on my down days, I think that too. To get started would help, but I was telling you, I was reading this 1981, there's a Reader's Digest article about solar energy and how someday maybe those batteries would be better than they were in 1981, and they are so much better. And so there's a lot of things that can be done with solar and wind. They've done studies with people talk about the windmills killing birds, but they've got a study now. If you paint one of those blades black, every other blade black, the birds stay away for some reason. And there's a couple other things they can do. So they're working on these problems. But I think people have to really embrace it, and people have to tell their politicians that we know you get a lot of money from the oil industry and this sort of thing, but you're going to have to turn your back on that and put the people and the planet first, and start working on making us not so dependent upon natural gas. Mm-hmm. But I'm like you. I don't think they have the courage to do it. The last thing the people have in our Congress is courage, in my opinion. So,
good one, Dale. Thank you.
Did you ever read Profiles in Courage by John Kennedy?
If I did, it was a long time ago.
Well, he won the Pulitzer Prize, I think, for it back before he became president. But it's a book about people who put their own personal interests or their own careers aside to do what was right for the greater good for the country. And I think people should read that, because some of them really suffered for it, but in the long run, it turned out to be a wonderful thing for the planet, or for the country at that time. And we need people who will do the same thing now. So
yeah, that's very good. This is Steve Brown Arts Center Podcast Network. Dale, I want to talk a little bit about how we question people in our society.
Okay.
It's not. It is not. I don't think people realize the harm we do by the way we question people. There's a fine line between being interested and questioning people. And I've been, you go back to when I taught, I was as guilty of it as anybody. But as I think about it now, some of these are real harmful. Mm-hmm. Dale, you taught elementary for years, and here's a question, that I'm sure young people were asked, either by their parents or grandparents, aunts and uncles. Do you have a boyfriend or do you have a girlfriend? Mm-hmm. We ask little kids that. Mm-hmm. I mean, talk about pressure.
Yeah.
It is. We as a society try to make people as we are. We try, and I understand there's mores and there's folk ways, but we try to force people to get married in our society. And it starts in elementary school with little kids. Yeah. Who's your boyfriend? Who's your girlfriend?
Yeah.
Well, who cares with a 5-year-old child or a 6-year-old child? They got enough other things. They don't need to be worrying about a boyfriend or a girlfriend.
Yeah.
But we do that, and including myself,
Mm-hmm. Oh, sure. You think you'll get a funny answer.
Yeah.
It's just a, yeah. People have been doing that for centuries.
They have.
Yeah.
Another one. Are you on a diet?
Yeah.
It is. I ran into a friend of mine in Walmart the other day. I knew him, but I didn't know him because he was down 60 pounds.
Yeah.
And I looked at him and I thought, well, gosh, he's the father of another friend of mine. He can't be my friend. Mm-hmm. Thank goodness I didn't say, well, are you on a diet? Because that friend has cancer.
Yeah.
He's lost 60 pounds the last 5 months because of the cancer and the radiation and the like.
Will I interrupt your flow if I throw in something here?
No, go ahead.
One of the first teacher contracts we had with the school district, there was a clause in there that if a teacher became pregnant, she was supposed to notify. And I think their reasoning was, we need to look ahead and get a sub or this or that. And so that was in the contract. The president of the Teachers Association, and Mr. Jesse was the high school principal, and he comes up to me in the hallway and he says in the contract that if a woman is pregnant, she needs to notify the administration with a letter. He says, I think Mrs. So-and-so, who is a heavy-set woman, is pregnant, and she needs to give us a letter. You want me to ask her if she's pregnant? Because, okay, if she isn't, this is a bad situation. So I go into her room and I say, well, would you by chance happen to be pregnant? And she said, well, yes, I have. I said, oh, good. I said, well, you need to write a letter to the principal telling him that you're pregnant.
Yeah. It is.
Yeah, potentially it was a bad question, because if she had just added some pounds or something, that would have been very embarrassing for both of us. And
it would have been.
But I had no choice, I guess, at that time, but to ask the question. But
you look at, and that's another thing. I mean, we have laws that protect racist statements now, and we have laws that protect against religious attacks on religion, but we still attack people's weight. Fatter people or obese people. How do you want to diet? Another one is that almost every young couple gets, and I feel bad for women more than I do for husbands. Here, where you can have children.
Yeah.
That's not fair to them. You don't know their financial situation.
Well, the physical situation. There could be a lot of things happening. Yeah.
Yeah. They don't need that pressure.
Yeah. And really, it's none of you, even if you're the in-law, it's none of your business whether or not the kids have kids or not.
You're right.
But I know what you're saying there.
Yeah. And another one that I changed the last few years when I taught, and I don't ask people that are graduating anymore. Students are asked, what are you going to do when you graduate? Mm-hmm. Well, you can just see the pressure on their face.
Yeah.
Heck, they don't know what they're going to do that day, let alone 5 years from now or 10 years from now.
No, I always told kids there's no law that says when you turn 18 you have to have the rest of your life mapped out. Oh. It's just, don't worry about it. If we need to go on a trip for a year or get a job and work someplace for a year or 2 years or go in the military for a few years to get straightened out and get your mind set, why, there's nothing wrong with that. You don't have to start your work life when you're 18 years old. And so I've tried to be on the good side of that one.
Yeah.
But it does put a lot of pressure, especially if there's kind of like a family business, like dad's a teacher, mom's a teacher, here's another little teacher. There's been tons and tons of stories written about the problems family have when Junior doesn't want to carry on with the family business.
Yeah.
What are they going to do? And, it's been in our family for 3 generations, and you and your brothers, none of you want to farm, or none of you want to run the store, what are we going to do? And so that would be hard to face up to that, too, as a kid.
It is. We have to be careful when we ask, especially young people, those kind of questions, especially about their weight. Are you on a diet? Or are you, it is. There's so much out there that can harm people. Mm-hmm. So
it was. They wanted her to do a solo career. They didn't want the brother, and she said, "Well, the brother can be in my band and this sort of thing," and was really her partner. But the record people got on her that in her public appearances she looked heavy. And she turned into, had a food addiction, and at the end was anorexic and actually killed her because they were after her about losing weight, and there was, she just skin and bones. And, her thing was she had just this most incredible, beautiful voice, but that wasn't enough for them. For the people making money off of her, they wanted her to look different than she did. And, some people's bodies are meant to carry a little more weight, and some people cannot be skinny like that, even though, the Southern Belles back in the early 1800s that wanted to have the thin little waist and would cinch themselves up with corsets and this sort of thing. Right. And you think, okay, didn't anybody ever think, that's really stupid? But I heard someone had a rib removed. Did you ever hear that?
Yeah, yeah. I see that quite a bit.
Yeah. And I think, okay, the Chinese used to bind the feet of the little girls so they couldn't walk. They thought that was some kind of a sex thing, I think. But it was just, who comes up with these things and who pay? So.
This is Steve Brown Arts Center Podcast Network. We were talking earlier on, Dale, about the best soundtrack from a movie.
Yeah.
And both you and I are from an earlier generation. Our producer over there.
He had no idea what we were talking about, did he?
He didn't.
Yeah,
But Dale, what is your best movie soundtrack of all time?
Well, the one I can think of that I was so impressed with is the original Star Wars, and it was at 1978. I thought the music in that and the sound effects, and if you remember the bar scene where they had all these different looking, you can call them people, but creatures or whatever, beings, and the music that was being played by the little band that was in there and everything, and that sticks with you. And even though space is a vacuum and doesn't carry sound, you could hear the blasters going up out in the middle of space. The rockets would make a noise and this sort of thing. So you say, well, that can't be right, but it seemed to fit. And so, just off the top of my, that's the one I remember as being very impressed by the sound. And so I picked the original the first Star Wars that came out. So
that's a really good one. Notice that's 1978, Blake. That was 1978.
Yeah.
And we're a little older, but mine comes
we were
from,
both older then than Blake is now, I think. Probably.
I'm afraid you're that. I was only about 16, 17 at the time.
Oh,
in
okay.
78.
You're just a baby then. Okay.
I was, but for sci-fi, I can remember going to Star Wars and seeing that movie.
Yeah.
What I chose was was born on Saturday Night Live. Saturday Night Live had some incredible stars at that time. They had Gilda Radner, and they had Bill Murray. They had Dan Aykroyd and John Belushi. And night after night, or Saturday after Saturday, they would come out with skits. Was quite a singer. I can remember him singing. Gosh, I'm trying to think of the English singer that he would do. But he would sing quite regularly. And one night, and they would do. The Bees, Aykroyd and Belushi sang a blues song, and it was a hit. Owned a bar in New York City that would keep musical instruments for people to jam with, and blues musicians would come in and jam there, and they would have the after show party there, and he got Belushi. One night they came out and they dressed in their famous fedora hats and the dark glasses and the dark suits, and they came out and sang a song, and the band leader for Saturday Night Live talked them into giving themselves the name the Blues Brothers. Elwood and Jake.
Yeah.
Aykroyd was Elwood, and So Aykroyd and another guy started to write a movie at the bar, and they wrote this movie, and they decided that they were going to make this movie. The extras were incredible, huge numbers. They had the National Guard in Illinois. They had a crowd of 5,000 people at a concert they did. They had
Aretha Franklin.
Here are some of the stars that they had on the show. They had Aretha Franklin.
Yeah.
They had
And Carrie Fisher from Star Wars.
Carrie
was in there too.
Fisher.
Yeah.
Twiggy.
Oh, yeah.
Twiggy was in that.
You have to explain Twiggy to Blake sometime.
Cab Calloway was in that. That was his last big starring role.
Yeah.
Stevie Cooper, Lou Marini, Alan Rubin, Eddie Floyd, Donald Duck Dunn, Willie Hall, Johnny Lee Hooker.
Those are all blues people.
Yes,
right?
they are. I mean, there was a big renaissance because of Belushi and Aykroyd. There was a big renaissance of the blues in the 1970s. Kids my age that wouldn't have known anything about the blues.
That's true.
Were exposed to the blues.
Yeah.
Because of that movie, and because of Saturday Night Live. Tommy McDonald, Mighty Mac, Paul Schaefer, the guy that was on
The Tonight Show. Or no,
Yeah.
David Letterman.
David
Yeah,
Letterman.
the band leader. Yeah.
Guitar Matt Murphy. Willie Hall. It was incredible, and the songs they had, Dale, were just remarkable. The Flip Flop Fly. They had Think. She Caught the Katy. Theme from Rawhide.
Yeah, Rawhide. I knew that one when they played that. So.
Yeah, Sweet Home Chicago.
Yeah, I love that song.
Aykroyd was from Chicago, and they were way over budget. This was a movie, and this was the 1970s. They were filming it. It cost $25 million to film it. If you remember, in that movie, they had a police car chase in a mall.
Yeah, I always wonder how many cars if there was ever a number given out, because it's unbelievable.
It
With
is.
that chase in the mall, and then all the cars piled up later on and everything. So
Yeah. They had Shake Your Tail Feather, Hey Bartender, Messing with a Kid, I Can't Turn You Loose, I Got Everything I Need, Almost. The Old Landmark, Minnie the Moocher, Cab Calloway
I
sang
love that.
Minnie the
Yeah,
Moocher.
yeah. Who was the little guy that played the Nazi?
Oh,
Henry. But he was on Laugh-In. He would read little poems.
yes,
and
he
everything.
was. Yeah. Green Onions, Guilty, Riot in Cell Block Number 9. They had to have 500 guys at that concert.
Mm-hmm.
Shotgun Blues, B-Movie Boxcar Blues, Peter Gunn theme, and I Can't Turn You Loose. I mean, they just tore it up. And like you say, with Aretha Franklin and Johnny Lee Hooker, and they brought a lot of those guys back that were more or less dead in the water,
Yeah.
and exposed them to people that had never heard of them.
Yeah. No, I would. That's your. I'm sure your soundtrack, and it was a great one.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they must have sold an album from that.
Yeah.
That was a great big seller. But no, that was a fun show, and I've been in Chicago probably more than any other city because the Cubs were there, and when they had them. The boys staying in that little apartment next to the L, and everything would shake when the train went by, and they just sleep right through it. You think, oh man. And Carrie Fisher trying to blow them up with everything she could get her hands on, and so no, it was a lot of fun.
It was, it was a movie that, and they had to cut it. Aykroyd had it written, and when Hollywood got it, they had to bring John Landis in, and John Landis had to butcher it because it was so long. He just kept writing.
Yeah,
and. Like I said, it cost $25 million to make, and it grossed like $181 million. So
that's a lot of money, and that's in today's dollars, that's probably $1 billion.
Yeah, yes, it was.
Yeah,
it was wonderful. This is Steve Brown Arts Center Podcast Network, and I'm Jim Gillespie with Dale Rueber and producer Blake Tempus. And we're at Cowork 591 Studios in beautiful downtown Jesup. It's the hub of industry, as presently outside the golf course board is meeting and changing, I'm sure, to an 18-hole golf course now as we speak.
Yeah.
So, not that we're starting any rumors or anything.
Well, if we don't know anything that's true, we have to start making stuff up. And so... Kathy Bucknell, her house is on the market. See, because that's going to be the 10th hole right there. So,
is it really on the market?
Huh?
Is it really on the market?
No,
okay.
Well, you're going to expand the golf course. You got to go some way,
I gave Dale an article to take home and read tonight. It's by Malcolm Gladwell. Malcolm Gladwell's pretty big in the world right now. If he wrote for. He was a staff writer for the New York Times or the New Yorker
magazine.
Yeah, New Yorker magazine, and he's the guy that came up with the 10,000 hour rule, where you could be at anything you wanted to if you spent 10,000 hours at it in your life.
That someone would pay you for doing it if.
If you wanted to be a professional golfer, and you spent 10,000 hours at it.
Yeah.
And it's since been debunked.
Yeah.
But but he believed that.
Yeah.
But I wanted to talk about that article that Dale wrote, because this that I gave Dale to read, because this sort of has to do with something that the Steve Brown Arts Center is working on. This is an article by Malcolm Gladwell in the New Yorker back, I believe it's 2013, and it's called How David Beats Goliath. And this happens more often than not, if you look. When Vivek Randavi, not the man running for president, this is Vivek Randavi, decided to coach his daughter Anjali's basketball team, he settled on two principles. The first was that he would never raise his voice. This was National Junior Basketball, the Little League of Basketball. The team was made up of mostly 12-year-olds, and 12-year-olds he knew from experience did not respond well to shouting. He would conduct business on the basketball court, he decided, the same way he would conduct business at his software firm. He would speak calmly and softly and convince the girls of the wisdom of his approach with appeals to reason and common sense. The second principle was more important. Randavi was puzzled by the way Americans played basketball. He was from Mumbai in India, and he grew up with cricket and soccer. He would never forget the first time he saw a basketball game. He thought it was mindless. Team A would score and then immediately retreat to its own end of the court. Team B would inbound the ball and dribble it to Team A's end, where Team A was patiently writing. Then the process a basketball court was 94 feet long, but most of the time a team defended only about 24 feet of that, conceding the other 70 feet. Occasionally, teams would play a full court press. That is, they would contest their opponent's attempt to advance the ball up the court, but they would do it only for a few minutes at a time. It was as if there were a kind of conspiracy in the basketball world about the way the game ought to be played.
Yeah.
And Randavi thought that the conspiracy had the effect of widening the gap between good teams and weak teams. Good teams, after all, had players who were tall and could dribble and shoot well. They could crisply execute the carefully prepared plays in their opponent's end. Why, then, did any weak teams play in a way that made it easy for good teams to do the very things that made them so good?
Yeah.
Well, Randavi looked at his girls. Morgan and Julia were serious basketball players, but Nikki, Angela, Danny, Holly, Anakin, and his own daughter Anjali had never played the game before. You know, we've all been through that as coaches, where you get a group of young ladies or young men that have never played the game before.
Yeah.
They couldn't shoot. They weren't particularly adept at dribbling. They were not the sort who played pickup games at the playground every evening. Most of them were, as Randavi said, little blonde girls from Menlo Park and Redwood City, the heart of Silicon Valley. You know, a bunch of computer geeks' children is what it was. Those were the daughters of computer programmers and people with graduate degrees. They worked on science projects and read books and went on ski vacations with their parents and dreamed about growing up to be a marine biologist. Randavi knew that if you played the conventional way, if they let their opponents dribble the ball up the court without opposition, they would almost certainly lose to the girls for whom basketball was a passion. Randavi came to America as a 17-year-old with $50 in his. He was not one to accept losing easily. His second principle then was that his team would play a real full-court press every game, all the time. The team ended up at the national championship. It was really random, and Anjali Randavi said, my father had never played basketball before.
Yeah, isn't that amazing?
This team plays against a really good team, and they pressed them. Well, it was a tournament where you had to bring your own official. And this team that they were playing's official started calling fouls as soon as the game started. Mm-hmm. And even with that, they stayed in the game. But by the end, they had to back off and sit in a half-court game. It was saddening for them to see a man would cheat 12-year-old girls.
Yeah.
You know, because they didn't agree with the style that they played. Gladwell did a nice job of talking about it, and that article talks about multiple times where the underdogs defeat people that are far better or more prepared for the event. Who was the great Chinese warrior? Was it not Lao Tzu, but who wrote the Art of War?
Yes, yeah. I knew that's who you meant, but I can't pick out the name. But
you know, he did a lot of the same things. He would break down into small groups and hit and run like that.
Yeah, yeah.
But the reason I tell you this story is the Steve Brown Arts Center is doing a docuseries about a team that runs the Grinnell system. And we're presently talking with a girls team in Bensenville, Illinois. Bensenville, Dale, if you're not familiar, is the suburb that O'Hare Airport is in. And
okay, I would not have known that.
yeah,
So.
and O'Hare is slowly taking this suburb.
Yeah.
As the airport
keep
grows
expanding,
larger and larger and larger.
Yeah.
And anyhow, there's a high school there called Fenton, where the girls run the Grinnell system, where they press all over the floor. They want to shoot half their shots are 3-pointers. They want to shoot 25 more times than the opponents. They want to rebound 35% of their misses. They want to turn the opponent over 32 times. And I watched one of their games here this week, and they are not overly talented, and I'm not attacking them because they play some incredible teams. They are the second smallest school in their conference,
Okay.
in that Chicago conference. They play fast, they press, and they're a bunch of young ladies that can run forever. And they are those little girls that we talked about earlier from Malcolm Gladwell's story. But anyhow, we're talking to them. And we're also talking to Grinnell College about if it doesn't work out in Bensenville, we may do the Grinnell men. I talked to Dave Arsenal, the men's coach there, and he was very excited about doing a docuseries about his team, and he's got some really good young players right now that are only going to get better. They're 10-3 right now. They lost Saturday at Lawrence, and they play Friday at noon against Andrews. And I plan on going down to that and talking to Dave some more about it. At one time, there were about 100 teams in our country running the Grinnell system, and it's down to less than 10 teams running
is that
the
right?
system.
Okay.
Right now in our country, and that's middle school through men's college.
Yeah. So when Virgil was at Darlington, he ran
the Grinnell system.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Yeah.
So
a lot of kids get to play in that system.
yeah, well,
they run them in and out. So
and I talked to Dave yesterday on the phone, and he said, Jim, I want to play. I got 20 guys. I got 20 guys on my team. And I'm playing all 20 of them.
Oh wow! Okay.
He's playing 20 players.
Yeah.
And he is. It's those of you not familiar, Dave coached in the NBA G League for a couple of years. Tried to take the Grinnell system to the Sacramento's G League team out in Denver, out in Colorado in that area. No, it was Reno. He eventually went back. And he had to change the system because in the G League they try to save money, and usually they have less than 12 players that are healthy or capable of playing because they're pulling people up. Like Garza, that plays for Des Moines, also plays for the Timberwolves up in Minneapolis when they need him. And who was the man that played for UNI?
Yeah, Green.
Yeah,
is it Green? Yeah.
Plays for the Bucks and also plays for their G League team.
Yeah.
So you're constantly losing players, and it was real hard to run the system with just 10 guys.
I remember someone asked Al McGuire once, he was the coach at Marquette that won the national championship, about how he keeps his squad tied in with everything. And he said, what you need is 7 guys who can really play and 8 guys that are just happy to be there. Because that's the system he ran. It's 7 guys could play the whole game. And with the Grinnell system, that would not work. Everybody's got to play, or almost everybody.
And Dave's dad, David Arsenal, was head coach of Grinnell before Dave was, and he always said this: it's not a clubhouse. Everybody doesn't play the same amount. Maybe 19 and 20 play 3 minutes in a game or 2 minutes in a game. Maybe 12 through or 13 through 17 play 6 or 7 minutes in a game. It's not a clubhouse.
Yeah.
But I always wanted to, as head coach, wanted to suit 20 kids and play 20 kids at the varsity level.
That would be neat.
Anyhow, that we are trying to put the money together and trying to find a team and trying to find a documentarian that will do it. I wish it took as much time as doing a podcast, but it doesn't. It takes months and months and months. It's been a year-long process, and I'm not convinced we're any closer, Dale.
Yeah, well.
But at least we're talking to people.
Well, sure.
So this is Steve Brown Arts Center Podcast Network. Some events coming up include this Friday at Allerton Brewery, Dave Harms, the photographer, is showing his work. On February 4th, there's an art show at the Jesup Firehouse from 8:30 to 10:30, along with the pancake breakfast. There is Nick Thomas from Los Angeles is showing his work. Bayer from Independence, a woodwork man, is showing his work. And John Decker is showing his work. Okay. That's February 4th from 8:30 to 10:30 at the Jesup Firehouse. To conclude our February experience, Kenny Mielhow is showing his artwork at Winding Creek Meadow from 2 until 4 on February 17th. So those are upcoming events in the Steve Brown Arts Center. Okay. I won't go through the rest of the events for the year, but we're excited about those. Dale, before we close out tonight, do you have anything else you want to talk about?
I don't think so. I just say compliment the city. They did a nice job with the streets again, and we got a good bunch of workers there. And so I could tell you, went to Dale Lorenz's funeral. Something you said earlier reminded me of that. And I met him when my son was 5. Summer after kindergarten, they played t-ball. And so I was assigned, I just signed up. And Dale Lorenz was assigned to coach Gillespie, so the two of us were coaching. So the first day, we got the kids in a kind of a line, and they're getting up to the plate, and we're showing them how to stand when they bat, because some would stand on the plate, and some would stand, looking the wrong way and have the bat wrong. So Dale Lorenz is working that, and so the little boy would go up there, and he would take him by the shoulders, and he would move him, now you stand and say, put your feet like this, and move his feet for him, and this sort of thing. So he did 8 or 9 kids like that, and then this kid gets into the box, and he grabs him like, here, turn like this, and put your feet like this, and he grabs it. I said, whoa, it was his own kid, So he was so nice and gentle with all these little kids, but when his own kid got up there, he said, he had no more time He'd had enough. You ought to know how to do this. And so that's what I remembered about him at the funeral. I thought it was so very interesting. What a nice man. And he served 3 different tours in Vietnam with the Navy. And I think a lot of his health problems over the years were the result of his service. And so,
Yeah.
but going to miss him. And here's Seth and Matt. You probably had those. In
Right.
school. You had the boys
Right.
in school. So nice kids. So
Yeah.
okay, that's all I got.
All right. Well, thank you. If you'd like to donate to the Steve Brown Arts Center, as I said, email me at the Jim at stevebrownartscenter.org or call 319-290-0241, and I'll tell you how to do that. I'm Jim Gillespie. Thanks to co-host Dale Rueber, and thanks to our producer.
He's been very quiet tonight, hasn't he?
He's a shy person.
Yeah.
And we are lucky to be here. Make sure you tell your friends. Click like and follow us.
Yeah.
And
Do they have a box like, oh, they're okay? You know, it's what, I don't know, but yeah.
then follow us and follow us again, if you would. We are fortunate to know that every day is about little victories.